speaker, Reverend Christine Jeffers. So Reverend Christine Jeffers has been a minister of religious science for 22 years. She is the founding minister of Center for Spiritual Living in the Yuba City, California area. Her passion and gift of teaching science and mind principles has graduated and empowered hundreds of people to awaken to their spiritual magnificence and live their lives from their unique God-given talents and desires. Today, Reverend Christine is the CSL Community Affiliation Coordinator for our organization's home office in Genesee. She's mother of a grown son and daughter and granny to 3 boys. Finding religious science in 1984 became the best and the worst time of her life, and we'll hear more about that this morning. So her topic today is As Within, So Without. Please welcome Reverend Christine Jeffers.
Well, here we are again. Hello there. So, how is everybody this morning?
Terrific.
Awake yet?
What did Jody Stevenson tell us? Living in a constant state of abundance.
All right. Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about today is the paradox of life. So let's see. Let me get kind of organized here. The title of my message today is As Within, So Without. And to those of you who have dabbled or studied in metaphysics and the science of mind, that idea as within, so without will be very familiar to you. And I was reading this morning something on the internet about that statement, and it was talking about if you are angry, you are going to attract various forms of anger to yourself. If you feel at the deepest level of your being that you have been abandoned and that you maybe really aren't that much of value, you're going to attract experiences that abandon you. Well, this went on and on and on. And about halfway through the article, I thought, I don't want to read that.
Yes.
So, okay, relief, I'm not going down that road. But I kind of am going to be going down that road. So I think that it's important to me anyway, I don't know if it's important to you, that you know a little bit about me as your guest speaker. And so in the introduction that Leah read, where it says, Finding Religious Science, more than 22 years ago, probably about 34 years ago at this point, was the best and the worst time of my life. And so one of the things that I want to share with you is that it was what I considered to be at that time one of the worst times of my life. And that is what drove me, the desperation of what I was experiencing at that time. And I had always been interested in self-help books. So maybe some of you can relate to that. And in reflecting back on that, it is such a chuckle to me now, because I remember that as I was reading, and this was before Science of Mind, that as I was reading these self-help books, that where my mind would go with it was, well, if they would only know this, if they would always do this. And so the knowledge that I was taking in apparently could only move so far through me. And what I did with it, because I knew it was true, was to project it out on the other people in my life and know that if they would just get it, if they would just read the book, if they would just make the changes, that my life would no longer look or be or feel like it did at the time. So, whatever the time was that I was reading these books and thinking about these things, along the way, a friend of mine, and I want you to listen to this from the perspective of what a friend really could be. A friend of mine was a member and sung in the choir at the Paradise Church of Religious Science, which is in Northern California. And this is a very old church. It was actually dedicated by Ernest Holmes. So it's been around a very long time. And my friend Kathy sung in the choir, or sang in the choir, and went to the church. And we would drive around because we both had little kids, and that was one of our connections. And we would drive around, and she had taken science in my class, and she would say little things to me. And I remember the day, like 34 years ago or more, that we were driving down the road, and she said something to the effect, and I'm sure I'm paraphrasing, but it was the principle that whatever it was that I was thinking about would become my reality. And I remember a visceral in my body, this visceral feeling that took place here in my brain, where my mind just went kind of doing. Just like that. It was like those words hit something in my mind that began to break the shell. And I had just this flash of a moment of what it was that I was thinking about, kind of the gist of it. And I went, oh my God. Now all of this happened like that. It wasn't a logical sequence of events. It was just a paradigm that showed up in my mind like that. And I didn't say, I was just cool and calm and, oh, that's interesting. And as our friendship went on, I don't know over what period of time, she said a couple of things to me like that. And then one day, I was bemoaning to her the fate of what it was that I was experiencing. And I don't know if I shared with her or not, but I had already begun to have an idea that to have a sense of fright about the fact that my life in some way was beginning to look like my family of origin. Even though, the players were different, even though I was different, some of the scenarios were different, there was something within me that was curious about this. And so this day I was bemoaning to her, and she said, one of the ministers at the church, it's a husband and wife team, she does counseling, and you need to go. And I said, oh, really? And she goes, yes, and she has red hair. And I went, red hair?
Okay.
A minister has red hair, it's a woman, and she has red hair, and she does counseling? Again, curious. And so I called up right away, and I made an appointment. I had a counseling appointment, and because she was teaching from a place of her own experience, for the very first time in my life, I had the experience of being seen. Of being seen for who I really was at the level of experience, but also something more. So let me tell you what I think about the level of seeing me at the level of my experience. Up until that time, the way it was all constructed in me was that it wasn't really an effort, I didn't think, but I naturally was quite invested in how I presented myself. And so to have a feeling that I was being seen and acknowledged for what I really felt a little bit more deeper, like down in here, was actually very validating. And so when I was reading, going back to that article that I was reading this morning about, well, if you this and if you that, you're gonna this, as within, so without. But in my experience in that moment, I actually experienced being seen at the level of my pain, very free, very validating, to the point that my heart began to open and the shell began to crack. So I went to church the following Sunday, and I saw all these sign-up sheets, and I enrolled in class. So within a week, I was doing weekly counseling, going to church every Sunday, and taking class every week. And my life began to change. Now, does that mean that it was all pretty? And no, it doesn't at all. So what I want to, part of this story, not for whatever it is that is coming up within you about it, I want to share with you that you're inviting people, friends of yours, whether you think they need it or not, or whether you think that they are going to be receptive to it or not, is something, it's huge. And, and our intellect will always try to talk us out of that. So I want to encourage you, because what I began to know and realize years down the road was that the path that I had journeyed within myself and what I began to reach deeper and bring out of myself was a foundation of consciousness of the church that I belonged to. And that I was there in part because our journey never ends, right? Never ends. The unfolding of our soul never ends. But I also was aware that I was there, and every bit of service that I gave and every check that I put in the donation basket was creating in the future something that would be there for the people that were yet to come. The people who had not shown up yet, as in your treatment. And that those people, anyone out there that has yet to come, we don't need to know what it is that moves and opens within them that actually brings that forward. All we need to know is that we do our treatment, but then we also move our feet. And we wait for don't keep it a secret. And so what I call it is high participation to the idea and low attachment to the outcome. So in whatever way you're genuinely inspired, you put it out there, you share it, you be who you are, you talk about your own personal experience because your friends know you. So if you just go around saying, well, I'm whole, perfect, and complete, they might go, oh, really? So it calls for a little deeper sharing. It calls for something that is really real about you. And how is it that you are taking this teaching and this principle, for example, as within, so without, and applying it in your life? So what I'm suggesting is that you begin to move beyond, especially in being open and vulnerable and visible out in the world, that you move beyond that place that I was at where I read the books, and then I was going to talk about the book to everyone and tell everyone, hoping that they would change so that my life would be better. Or hoping that they would change so that then they would get some inspiration about coming as well. But what's going to inspire them is your vulnerability, your willingness to be seen. So when we talk about the concept of as within, so without, a rhetorical question. What is it? What is it in you that might need to shift and change? Maybe nothing. Maybe you already do that. Or maybe you have moments of going to sleep. And so there's a story that I want to share with you that's called Jonah's Fate. And it's the story of this little girl who at Sunday school heard the story of Jonah in the ship being tossed over and swallowed by the whale. And on Monday, the little girl goes to school to her teacher, and she tells the story of Jonah and the whale. And her teacher says it was physically impossible for the whale to swallow a human, because even though a whale is very large, its throat is very small. The little girl said, "But how can that be? Jonah was swallowed by a whale." Emphatically, Jonah was swallowed by a whale. That was the story, and I believe it. And very irritated, the teacher reiterated that a whale could not swallow a human. "It is physically impossible," she said. But undaunted, the little girl says, well, when I get to heaven, I'll ask Jonah." And to this, the teacher said, "What if Jonah went to hell?" And then the little girl says, "Then you'll ask him." Now, there's many different ways that we can think about this story. But metaphysically, the idea is that the story is about Jonah. Because every single story in the Bible is about you and about me. It's the story of the unfoldment of our soul. And so here is Jonah, who goes on this ship, and the story says that they were in this raging storm, and Jonah is down in the, what do you call it?
The trenches.
He's down in the trenches in the bottom of the ship, and guess what he's doing? He's sleeping. He's asleep. Now, could you imagine being down in the bottom of a ship that was in a raging storm, as it is described in the story, sleeping? Really? I don't think so. But what if he's down in the belly of the ship, which is the belly of his experience, and he's sleeping? He's not awake. He's walking through his life, going through the everyday motions of whatever it is that he does. When all the while, what he really, really wants is the experience of a higher consciousness, the Christ consciousness. And lo and behold, that idea at the core of his being that really, really wants to have an experience and wants to express, creates for him an experience in his life where he is thrown out and he's swallowed by this whale. Now, I remember as a child reading this story and going, oh my God, that would be absolutely awful. And then, did any of you ever see the visual, the pictures?
Mhm.
Yeah, being in the whale, and it's this huge, cavernous thing, and he's just in the whale, but he's going, oh my God. Well, the whale is actually the higher consciousness. And so here he is, wanting to know God more than he does. He's wanting to know God as himself. And something within him, the paradox of life, creates this experience for him that he is in this raging ship, thrown over, swallowed by a whale, and his life appears to be over. I want to suggest that we all have these experiences all the time. Some of them really get our attention. And some of them are just the day-by-day quiet discontent of living, of life, of wanting something more, maybe not knowing what it is, maybe knowing what it is and not knowing how to make it happen. So I would suggest that we're in the belly of the whale when we're having that kind of experience. And that the presence of God, the power of God, the wisdom of God, the love of God is right there in our worst experiences. Now, the thing that happens to us as we go along in this journey of life, especially if we've been in this teaching for a period of time, is that we start to get complacent. We start to think it's too late, we're too old, it's not possible, well, life is okay. It's good enough. And every once in a while, that yearning for something more begins to stir. Now, if you are living your life thinking that you don't have that or you don't need to have that, then I suggest either two things. Number one is that you're fully evolved and you can just move on and make your transition. The other possibility is you're in denial and it's not the river in Egypt. That you're asleep. And so the question is, what do we want to do with that? Because Dr. Holmes tells us that the principle is that we can see with our physical eye, we can see the abundance in the universe. We can't count the grains of sand on a single beach, he writes. The earth contains untold riches, and the air is vibrant with power. And so he poses the question, Dr. Ernest Holmes right there, staring back at me. Why then are we weak and afraid? Why are we afraid to take a risk? Why do we let our experiences determine our reality when the actuality is that in the experience is the presence and the power and the joy and the freedom and the truth of God that is leading the way? Now, I was thinking about as within, so without, and I love the idea that our breath is a replication of the nature of spirit. So I was thinking about that as I was driving out here, and I was breathing. And I thought, breathe in and breathe out. And then I thought, you can't breathe out anything if you haven't breathed in. There's nothing to breathe out. So the more fully that I breathe through my entire body, moving through my lungs, which are metaphysically, my lungs are life, the more I have to breathe out. But frequently our breath only goes this far. And so maybe it is that we have to exhale all of the breath before we can breathe more deeply. And so the paradox of as within, so without is that whatever the experience is that we're having, we know what the experience is, but we may not really be consciously aware of how that experience, how that belief was born. Hence, entering science of mind, continue to be the best and the worst time of my life. Painful, gut-wrenching at times. Going down into the experience, being asked, well, how does this thing that you're experiencing now, how is how you're feeling now, what does that remind you of from your early life, maybe your childhood? Oh, something comes, we talk about it. Well, this is what happened. Well, how was it? How did that experience make you feel? Well, I felt abandoned. I felt alone. I felt scared. I felt that something was wrong with me. It wouldn't have been happening if something wasn't wrong with me. If I was enough, if I had been smart enough, if I had done the right thing, if I had been more pretty or more handsome. Well, what is it that you came to believe about that experience? Well, I came to believe that I was inadequate. I came to believe that I had to work hard and try harder. I came to believe that no matter how hard I tried or no matter what I did, that it really wouldn't get any better. Because the bottom line was that something was wrong with me. Now that is the belly of the whale. That is the place that Jonah went. That is what the wisdom and the intelligence and the presence of God manifested for Jonah and experience so that he could ask the questions. And then, because we are immersed in that presence and power, that love, that light, that truth, we really, really know the truth, that that's malarkey. I wanted to say something else. that it's really, really hard to wrap our fingers around it and have it all the time in our experience, but that we really, really are so much more than that. And that we've had glimpses of it. And that we do have something that we really want to give from within to without of ourselves. And that the more deeply we use our breath, the spirit of life, and breathe into it, that something begins to organically bubble up and we start to get inspired. And our imagination starts to come alive and say, well, it could be this and you could do this, and well, what about that? And you begin to get ideas of something that you want to do. And the closer it becomes to getting real, there's that belief out there coming on in and saying, who do you think you are? So Dr. Holmes asks the question, why then is humanity afraid? And he goes on and he gives us the answer, thank God. Because we don't trust. We don't trust it. We ask for it. We get the belly of the whale experience. We move through our false beliefs, whether it be with a practitioner or a minister, or maybe you're going to counseling, or maybe you have a trusted friend, and you get down to what the core belief is. And you have somebody praying with you, knowing the truth of your being, that within you is the answer, that just like planting the seed, that seed, that idea has everything within it to manifest itself. Everything. There's nothing missing. There's nothing you need to add to it. But Dr. Holmes says we need to trust it. Hence that treat and move our feet. One step at a, well, how is it going to look, and how is that going to happen, and well, I don't know. Breathe.
Mm-hmm.
As within, so without. You don't need to know all the answers. As a matter of fact, it is that error belief that is posing the questions and trying to get you off target. Is it the devil? Is it, is it ego? Well, at a feeling level, it's fear. It's the lack of trust. It's but I might be humiliated again, and what if I fail? Well, just look at sports, for God's sake, or any of the arts, or look at your life and think back to all the places that you failed and how that failing served you. It takes being conscious and thinking and really asking. As within, so without. And so the last thing that I want to share with you is this strange life that we're living, the paradox of life. The seed that is planted within us, that is the very essence of our being. As within, you are God. Know ye not that you are God? It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Will you take it? What will the steps be for you to begin to take it? It's not just about walking around and saying the words, although that is a part of it. It is moving through that fear that wants to keep you stuck, and to recognize that we live in a paradox. And I love this definition of paradox. A seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that when investigated or explained may prove to be well-founded or true. Well, I am the abundance of the universe. True, at a spiritual level, the potential is all there. Look at the checkbook. Not so true. I am whole, complete, and perfect. Wake up in the morning. See the doctor. Not so true. But if you can think the spiritual concept, that's where you begin. And that spiritual concept is going to, is not the end. We've got to get down to the fear part. We've got to get down to the treat and move your feet. I remember once hearing a talk by Michael Beckwith, and he talked about this woman that he was seeing for spiritual counseling. And she had all kinds of physical ailments. And he said, you know, we came and she talked about it, and we did all kinds of processes. And one day she came and he said, you know, knowing that she was coming, I was feeling a little bit frustrated. There's his experience. And he might say, oh, well, that's not very spiritual. But he followed that thought. And actually, the wisdom and the inspiration came out of that thought. And so she came and he said, if you were experiencing your wholeness, your completeness, and your perfection physically, what would you be doing? And she said, I don't know. Bingo. He said, well, when you figure out what it is that you want to do with your vitality, what do you want to do with your health? How is that going to fuel your life, and what will you go out and do, and how will you be of service, and what gives you joy? What do you love? What are you passionate about? Then, what is already within you will begin. It'll have a vehicle, an avenue to begin to express it. So my hope is that I've shared with you today enough ideas that no matter what it is that you're experiencing, that you can know that those experiences are a manifestation of God. Your experiences and the God that you are not separate. That right at the level of that experience is truth. And so a lot of times what I ask myself is, or say to myself, is three things. There's nothing wrong here. I'm in the middle of an experience. I'm not liking it. It allows me to breathe and take a mini vacation. There's nothing wrong here. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to do, and everything is subject to change. And then, okay, so how can I look at this different? Because for Jonah, when he began to look at it differently, when he began to see where he really, really was, and what was already within him, he knew the answer. And I know that that answer is within each and every one of you. So I bless you on your journey. Bless you for being here, for your open heart, your open mind, for your willingness, no matter where you are in life, to consider that everything is as it should be right now, and you're not done. There's more. So I bless you. Namaste.
Namaste.
to do the prayer.
Okay, so let's take a moment then and go within. And I invite you to, first of all, before you take a breath, to just blow out all that old hair that's already been used. Completely done. And allow yourself to be an avenue for the flow of spirit. Feel yourself firmly seated in your chair. Let the grounding of the universe be the roots of your legs and from all your whole body from the waist down. Feel your strength and your groundedness with the earth. And then moving up through your body to the very top of your head, have a felt sense experience of that openness at the top to the divine, where there is no physical end to you, and the beginning of spirit, the invisible source. And there's the paradox. We are rooted in the present moment, in the experience of life, and we are open from the top to that divine flow, the breath of life moving through us. And so we breathe deeply. We take it all in. We open our heart, we spread our chest and put our shoulders back and relax and let there be space in our muscles and in our mind. And that breath of spirit moves down through the upper torso of our body and down into the roots that is grounded here on earth. And in this place in consciousness, there's nothing to do. There's not even anything to know or to think. There's just being. Breathing and being and opening and letting go. The circulation of life. Opening to the new and releasing the old. That's what the breath is. A beautiful circulation of life. And let your awareness move down into your heart center. And maybe if your heart were speaking words, it might be something like, I've been holding on for so long. I've been trying so hard. I've been forgetting and going to sleep to who I really am. And to that intuitive presence that is my life itself, the God of my being. That there is a presence within me and around me that loves me unconditionally. That I am a beautiful spiritual being. And that spiritual being is the fuel to my having a human experience in this life. And so whatever it is that I feel and hold that are regrets of the past, anything that I hold against myself or another, I use my breath to just breathe and let it go, whether I know what it is or not. It really doesn't matter. For I am in the heart of God, and I am held and loved and breathed and all really truly is well in my world. I accept the gift. I let that gift have the potential to shine new light on every belief and every idea I hold about myself. And I let myself be at peace. Thank you, God. Mother, Father, God.